exist before they're allowed to be.
The 1960s were not just about tie-dye and peace signs. They were about voices rising against war, racism, and injustice. Voices that found their way into music. And here is the surprising part. Many of those songs still hit just as hard in 2025. So today, we are counting down the greatest protest rock songs that refuse to be silenced.
You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you told?
In the summer of 1965, a gravelly-voiced singer walked into a studio and delivered one of the most confrontational songs the Billboard charts had ever seen. Barry McGuire did not hold back. He tackled nuclear annihilation, racial injustice, the military draft, and the hypocrisy of politicians, all packed into a single furious track.
The pounding of the drums, the pride and disgrace.
Eve of Destruction shot straight to #1, and the establishment lost its mind. Radio stations banned it. Politicians called it dangerous and unpatriotic. Record stores pulled it from the shelves. But the harder they tried to silence it, the louder it became. For millions of young Americans, this was the first time someone on the radio said what they were all thinking. The world was on the edge, and finally, somebody had the guts to say it out loud.
On the eve of destruction.
What makes this song still resonate today is its raw, unfiltered honesty. McGuire was not trying to be poetic. He was trying to shake people awake. And more than half a century later, that alarm still rings. Every time the world feels like it is teetering on the edge again, this song finds its way back into the conversation, proving that some truths never go out of style.
A young girl's gone. Lord.
Pete Seeger wrote this song in 1955, but it did not truly find its voice until the folk revival of the early 1960s. And when it did, it became one of the most heartbreaking anti-war songs ever recorded. The genius of Where Have All the Flowers Gone lies in its gentle, cyclical structure. Flowers become graves, soldiers become memories, and the whole painful loop begins again. It is not an angry song, it is a sorrowful one.
Where have all the graveyards?
And sometimes, sorrow cuts deeper than any shout. Joan Baez and the Kingston Trio both covered it, carrying its message to audiences across the country. Seeger himself had been blacklisted during the McCarthy era, but his words traveled farther than any government could contain. There is even a story that the United States Army once invited him to perform the song at an event, completely oblivious to its anti-war meaning. That is the kind of quiet, devastating power this song carries. It slips past your defenses and settles right into your heart.
Oh, I must have killed 1,000,000 men, and now they want me back again.
If Bob Dylan was the poet of the protest movement, Phil Ochs was its soldier. And with I Ain't Marching Anymore, he drew a line in the sand that still echoes through history. Ochs did something no other songwriter had dared to do quite so bluntly. He walked through the entire history of American warfare, from the Battle of New Orleans to the Civil War to the fields of Europe, and then he simply said, no, no more. He was done marching.
Flew the final mission in the Japanese skies. Set off.
Done fighting wars that serve the powerful while destroying the powerless. The song became a rallying cry on college campuses and at Pentagon protests throughout the late 1960s. Ochs never achieved the mainstream fame of Dylan or Baez, but among the true believers, among the activists who put their bodies on the line, his voice carried an authority that few could match.
But I ain't marching anymore. No,
His courage was relentless, and his conviction never wavered. In a movement full of poets, Phil Ochs was the one who spoke like a man who had nothing left to lose. History may have overlooked him, but the movement never did, and neither should we. By 1968, the world was on fire. Assassinations, riots, the Vietnam War spiraling out of control. And then the biggest band on the planet decided to weigh in. The Beatles released Revolution in two versions, one stripped down and reflective, the other distorted and aggressive, and that duality was the whole point.
But you have to win.
John Lennon was wrestling with the question that defined a generation. Do you tear the system down, or do you change it from within? Was he endorsing revolution or questioning it? The answer depended on which version you listened to, and that ambiguity made the song even more powerful. What mattered most was that the Beatles, the most famous musicians alive, could no longer stand on the sidelines. Their massive platform turned a personal reflection into a global conversation. Revolution proved that even pop icons, even the lads from Liverpool who once just wanted to hold your hand, could not ignore the chaos of the world around them. And when they spoke, hundreds of millions listened. That is the kind of influence that reshapes not just music, but the way an entire generation thinks about responsibility and silence.
There's battle lines being drawn.
It started with a curfew dispute on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles. Police were cracking down on young people who gathered outside the clubs on the boulevard, and the tension boiled over into confrontation. Stephen Stills witnessed the chaos firsthand, and within days, he had written a song that would outlive the moment that inspired it by decades. For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield never once mentions war or politics by name, and that is exactly why it endures. That iconic opening line about stopping and listening to what is happening became a universal call to awareness. It could be about Vietnam. It could be about civil rights. It could be about any moment when authority pushes too hard and the people push back. Do you remember the first time you heard that electric guitar intro? That slow, hypnotic pulse that feels like a heartbeat? The song has appeared in countless films, documentaries, and television shows, always resurfacing whenever the world needs a reminder to pay attention. Its power is in its openness. It belongs to every generation that has ever felt the ground shift beneath its feet.
Tennessee made me lose my rest. Everybody
Nina Simone did not write Mississippi Goddam as a protest song in the traditional sense. She wrote it as an explosion. The assassination of Medgar Evers in Mississippi and the bombing of a church in Birmingham, Alabama that killed 4 young girls pushed her past her breaking point. And what came out was unlike anything the world had heard before.
Alabama's got me so upset, and Governor Wallace.
Simone once described the song as a show tune, but there was no show, just fury, dressed in rhythm. Her performance was biting, sarcastic, and absolutely thunderous. She did not ask for understanding. She demanded accountability, and she did it with a voice that could make you feel the weight of centuries of injustice in a single note. What Simone did with this song went beyond music. She shattered the expectation that Black artists should be polite, patient, and grateful. She gave herself permission to be furious, and in doing so, she gave that same permission to every artist who came after her. When she sat at that piano, she was not performing, she was telling the truth. And truth, delivered with that kind of raw power, does not have an expiration date. If you have never heard this song live, find the recording. It will change the way you think about what music can be. Released at the absolute peak of the Vietnam War, Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival was a gut punch wrapped in swamp rock. John Fogerty's snarling voice delivered a message that millions of working-class Americans had been feeling but could not quite put into words. The privileged stayed home. The rest went to war. The beauty of this song is its simplicity. There are no metaphors to decode, no poetic abstractions to untangle. It is a direct, furious declaration that the system is rigged, that the sons of senators and millionaires will never carry a rifle in the jungle.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
While ordinary kids pay the price. And that message hit like a freight train. CCR was never considered a traditional protest band. They were a rock and roll machine, built on rhythm and groove. But Fortunate Son turned them into political icons almost overnight. The song has since become one of the most recognizable anthems in American culture. showing up in films and documentaries whenever the story calls for the sound of righteous, blue-collar anger. It still speaks for everyone who has ever felt that the deck was stacked against them. And if you have ever heard those opening chords blast through a speaker, you know exactly the fire it lights inside you. There are songs that capture a moment, and then there are songs that seem to predict the future. The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan is one of the rare ones that does both. Written in 1963 and released the following year, it reads less like a folk song and more like a prophecy. Dylan addressed parents, politicians, writers, and critics directly, warning them all that the old world was crumbling and something new was being born. The line about sons and daughters being beyond the command of their elders was not just a lyric. It was a declaration of generational independence. Civil rights marchers adopted it. Anti-war protesters sang it. People on every side of every political divide found something in its words that spoke to them. And that is what makes it extraordinary. It is not tied to a single cause or a single moment. It is about the unstoppable force of change itself. And here we are, more than 60 years later, and those words still feel like they were written for right now. Maybe that is the mark of a true masterpiece. It never stops being relevant, because the world never stops changing. Every new generation discovers it, and every time, it feels brand new.
Oh, yes, it will.
Sam Cooke was one of the most beloved voices in American music. His smooth, gospel-trained tenor could make you feel like everything was going to be all right. But behind that warmth was a man who had lived the brutal reality of segregation, who had been turned away from hotels and restaurants simply because of the color of his skin. A Change Is Gonna Come was born from that pain. Inspired in part by Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, Cooke wanted to write something that spoke from the Black experience with the same emotional depth.
Beyond the sky, it's been a long.
What he created was a masterpiece that blended the sacred power of gospel with the aching vulnerability of soul music. The result was a song that did not just ask for change. It declared, with quiet certainty, that change was inevitable. The tragedy is that Sam Cooke was killed in December of 1964, just weeks before the song was released as a single. He never saw the impact it would have.
Oh, yes, it is.
He never heard it played at marches and vigils, never knew it would become one of the defining anthems of the civil rights movement. But his voice endures, carrying a message of hope so powerful that it still brings people to tears. He turned his deepest pain into a gift for the world, and the world has never forgotten. Do you remember the first time you heard this song? That feeling never fades.
And choking.
On May 4th, 1970, the National Guard opened fire on unarmed students at Kent State University in Ohio. 4 young people were killed. 9 more were wounded. The nation watched in horror as the war came home, not to a distant jungle, but to an American college campus. Neil Young saw the photographs and could not contain what he felt. Within hours, he had written Ohio, and the band rushed it to radio stations before the shock had even faded. David Crosby later said he cried during the recording. You can hear it in every note. The grief, the disbelief, the rage at a government turning its weapons on its own children. Tin soldiers and Nixon coming was not a metaphor. It was a headline. And Young turned that headline into something that would outlast every newspaper that printed it. Ohio proved that rock music could respond to tragedy in real time. It was not written months later from a safe distance.
Fusion has its cost.
It was written in the heat of the wound, and that rawness is what makes it unforgettable. More than 50 years later, it remains a reminder of what happens when power answers protest with violence.
Before they're allowed to be free.
And so we arrive at the song that stands above all others, the one that started it all, the one that proved a simple melody and a few haunting questions could change the course of music and history forever. Bob Dylan wrote Blowin' in the Wind in 1962, sitting in a Greenwich Village coffee house, scribbling lyrics on a napkin. He was barely 21 years old. And yet, the questions he asked felt ancient, timeless, as if they had been waiting centuries for someone to finally put them into words. How many roads must a person walk before the world sees their humanity? How many times can we look away before we can no longer pretend we do not see? The song became the heartbeat of the civil rights movement. Peter, Paul, and Mary brought it to the mainstream, and from there it spread across the globe. It has been translated into dozens of languages, performed at rallies, funerals, and celebrations on every continent. It is the song that world leaders quote and that children learn in school.
Because he sleeps in the sand.
It belongs to everyone who has ever looked at the world and asked why things cannot be better. More than 60 years after it was written, Blowin' in the Wind still carries the quiet, devastating force of truth. It does not shout, it does not accuse, it simply asks. And those questions, unanswered and eternal, are what make it the greatest protest song ever written. Because the answers, as Dylan told us, are still out there, drifting in the wind, waiting for us to finally listen. These songs were never just tracks on an album. They were the sound of a generation demanding something better. And they endure because they were written with something no algorithm can replicate: genuine human conviction. If this journey brought back a piece of who you are, share it with someone who still believes music matters. Tell us in the comments, which of these songs still gives you chills?